This works. Right. Hi, I'm Dottie Blakesley. I'm chair of the Regional Family Support Planning Councils. I am very excited to have this presentation because it addresses a critical issue that may be in front of a lot of families in the coming month and the months following. Families may be asked to requalify for Medicaid. And what happens if you don't qualify again for Medicaid? So we have a terrific group of people. Bev Roberts from the ARC of New Jersey. Is it Bev? Yes,
Yes,
the ARC of New Jersey.
yes, thank you.
I got confused for a second because I was thinking of Bergen and Passaic ARC, but that's no, you're the statewide ARC. We also have Lee Ginsberg who's a senior attorney at the Community Health Law Project, and Michael Brower, the legal director of Disability Rights New Jersey. So you'll have the whole gamut of resources. Hopefully you'll be able to walk away from this with, okay, I know what's coming up and I know what to do if Medicaid decides not to requalify me. I just wanted to add one more note. Because of the nature of a wide presentation like this, it's hard to ask a question that is very specific to your family. So if you do have a question, you can put it in the chat box, or you can feel free to get in contact with Bev, Michael, or Lee directly. Or if you just want to chat, you should join any of the regional family support meetings. You saw the screen that Kyoko put up for each of the regions. Come join one of those meetings, because that'll be a great way to just get not only support, but answer questions, share names, do whatever you like. It's a much freer forum. Okay, so thank you very much. I'm going to ask that each of the speakers do a little introduction on themselves before they launch into the presentation. I'm going to turn this over to Bev.
Thank you so much, Dottie. All right, so now I'm going to share my screen. Okay, hopefully everybody can see my screen. Okay, hi everyone. So if anyone has heard me do this presentation before in the past several weeks, some of this information is the same, but there's also some new information, including some brand new information that just came in yesterday afternoon. So we used to say hot off the press. This is hot off of the email attachments that I'm going to be providing some information later on in my talk. Okay, so a little bit first about the ARC of New Jersey. We are the largest nonprofit advocacy organization for people with intellectual and other developmental disabilities and their families in the state. We are a parent-directed membership organization founded way back in 1946, with chapters in all 21 counties, affiliated with the ARC of the US, and governed by a volunteer board of directors. With our 20 local county chapters serving all 21 counties, the ARC of New Jersey and the ARC chapters provide direct supports and services, including, and I'm not going to go through this whole list, but I'm just going to touch on the fact that we provide early intervention and children's programming, group homes and other community-based residential programs, day programs, recreation programs, family support services, etc. At the ARC of New Jersey, we provide a variety of free advocacy services. My program is called Mainstreaming Medical Care. That's my website. We also have at the ARC of New Jersey, the New Jersey Self-Advocacy Project, the Criminal Justice Advocacy Program, Planning for Adult Life, which is the transition program from high school to whatever is going to come after high school, the Family Institute, Project Hire, which is employment advocacy. It's free to families, but it must be tied to a funding source, such as IEP, DVRS, etc., and Camp JC, which is private pay or funding through Perform Care or DDD for a camp program. Okay, now to get into the specific Medicaid unwinding information. I just want to say a quick word before I start on this part of the slides. We are very lucky to be here in New Jersey. We are very lucky to have Jennifer Langer Jacobs as the Assistant Commissioner of DHS and the Medicaid Director. There's a small group of us who have been meeting with Jennifer Jacobs and her top-level staff every other week for a number of months in preparation for Medicaid unwinding. And she and her staff have been really helpful, really helpful in hearing our concerns and our advocacy and doing everything they can to try to provide the kind of information and the process that will be helpful to a large number of people, not only our folks with IDD, but everybody who has New Jersey FamilyCare Medicaid is going to have to go through this Medicaid unwinding redetermination process over the next 12 months. So, as you probably remember, the COVID pandemic started back in March of 2020. At that time, the federal government declared a public health emergency and continuous Medicaid enrollment. Therefore, no one has been terminated from Medicaid since March of 2020, but continuous Medicaid enrollment is going to end soon, starting next month, which is coming very quickly in April, and every month until March of 2024, 1/12 of the New Jersey FamilyCare Medicaid enrollees are going to receive a renewal Medicaid application. And this process has been called unwinding from the continuous Medicaid requirement. The actual PHE, or public health emergency, is going to end on May 11th. It was delinked from continuous Medicaid enrollment. This is a little pie chart that you probably have not seen before because we just did it a couple of days ago. We wanted to try to illustrate for people, even though there's so much emphasis right now on what's going to be happening in April with the start of the NJ FamilyCare Medicaid renewal applications, only 1/12, that little blue sliver of the pie, only 1/12 of these applications are going to be sent out in April. The rest of them will be sent out month by month between May of 2023 and March of 2024. So you may see written information using a variety of terms, but the meaning is the same no matter which term is used. Medicaid unwinding, Medicaid redetermination, Medicaid renewal, Medicaid restart. It really is all the same thing no matter which term is used. Medicaid unwinding does not apply to people who are currently receiving SSI and Medicaid. However, sometimes Social Security does a redetermination for the disability beneficiaries that receive SSI. You need to respond promptly to any requests for information from Social Security or from Medicaid. These bullets are a listing of all of the groups of people that should be expecting during this next 12-month period to get a Medicaid renewal application, because Medicaid unwinding does apply to the people in the list below. So there are people who receive SSDI, Social Security Disability Insurance income, due to the retirement, disability, or passing away of a parent, known as DAC status, Disabled Adult Child Status. People receiving SSDI on their own work record. So the person with IDD themselves getting SSDI and no longer having SSI because of their own work record. Sometimes it's called RSDI, Retirement, Survivors and Disability Insurance, NJ Workability Medicaid, New Jersey Care Special Medicaid Program, also known as Community Medicaid. Medicaid from the DDD waiver unit. This was previously called non-DAC, but those people, and now it's more officially from Medicaid from the DDD waiver unit, they will be getting a renewal Medicaid application. Dual eligibles, meaning people who received both Medicaid and Medicare with IDD, they are going to be part of this renewal application process, including people enrolled in a DSNP, a dual eligible special needs plan, and Medicare Advantage. Managed long-term services and supports, or MLTSS. And finally, New Jersey Family Care Medicaid expansion people, not in a disability Medicaid category. So the vast majority of our folks do have one of the ABD, aged, blind, disabled Medicaid categories. But there are perhaps a few people who are in Medicaid expansion, which is not a disability Medicaid category. It is based solely on income. And you cannot have Medicare to be in that type of Medicaid, although in the past 3 years, nobody was disenrolled from Medicaid for any reason. So it's possible that there are some people who are in this group did start to get Medicare during the past 3 years, and they will end up getting notification that they can no longer be in this Medicaid expansion category. But nonetheless, everybody in the list, every group in the list that I just mentioned, these folks will, over the next 12 months, receive a Medicaid renewal application. These are also a few new slides coming up. This comes directly from New Jersey Medicaid, from DMAS, just sent out recently. And we want to make sure everybody knows about this, and the next few slides are widely distributed. They are both in English and Spanish, and also available in many, many, many other languages. So this is a flyer. Keep your healthcare coverage. Be on the lookout for your New Jersey Family Care Renewal Packet. Now notice these flyers all say New Jersey Family Care. Doesn't say New Jersey Family Care Medicaid, but it is. It's for Medicaid as well, even though the term used is New Jersey Family Care. This slide is keep your healthcare coverage in Spanish. This is the other flyer that's recently been distributed by DMAS. Don't miss your New Jersey Family Care Renewal Packet. And interestingly, in this slide, giving the phone number 1-800-701-0710, it's saying you can update your mailing address. And we've known for a while, it's absolutely essential to update your mailing address by calling this phone number if anybody has moved in the past 3 years. But this flyer is also saying you could call that phone number to update your own phone number and also your email address. And this slide is don't miss your NJ Family Care Renewal Packet in Spanish. So it's really, really, really important to respond promptly to any mail that you get from New Jersey Family Care or Medicaid. As I mentioned a minute ago, New Jersey Family Care and Medicaid are the same. So don't be fooled by mailings that just say New Jersey Family Care and thinking, well, you should wait for something that says Medicaid. And if anything that says New Jersey Family Care or Medicaid, you need to respond promptly. Also, if something should come from the County Board of Social Services, you also must respond promptly with accurate information. So there are some things that you can do right now. The first is for anybody with IDD who has DDD services and wants to be absolutely sure that you're going to keep your Medicaid and DDD services. Do not exceed the Medicaid maximum allowable resource limit for your category. Usually that's $2,000. And this maximum also applies for folks receiving SSI, even though those folks shouldn't be getting an NJ Family Care renewal application, they still need to be absolutely sure that their resources don't exceed $2,000. There's an exception on the $2,000, which is if you've received a back payment from Social Security, you have 9 months to spend it down from the date on which you received that back payment. People with NJ workability, the current resource limit is $20,000. And I'll be talking in another few slides, I'll be talking more about NJ workability. Consider an ABLE account if that's appropriate. And I'll talk about ABLE account also later in my presentation. And as I've mentioned, be sure Medicaid has your current mailing address. Bank statements are going to be required with the renewal application. So as I mentioned, most people with IDD have a $2,000 resource limit. Some people, those who have New Jersey Care Special Medicaid program, have a $4,000 resource limit. And the NJ workability people have, at the moment, a $20,000 resource limit. We expect that that will go away completely and there won't be any resource limit when the phase 1 NJ workability improvements begin, hopefully very, very soon. Now, this slide, which was put together before the information that we received yesterday afternoon, said that we weren't certain how many months of bank statements would be required with the Medicaid renewal. But I have some brand new information on that, which I will be showing you in the cover letter later in these slides, which, according to the cover letter, says that it would only be the most recent bank statement that's going to be required. I'm now going to give you 4 hypothetical case examples to help you understand who probably will and will not be receiving a Medicaid renewal application. The first is an example of James. James started to receive SSI and Medicaid at age 18. He started to receive his DDD services at age 21. James is now 35 years old. He has never been employed and neither parent is receiving Social Security, retirement, or disability benefits. Both of his parents are alive. James is still receiving SSI and Medicaid, and his parents will not need to complete a Medicaid redetermination application from New Jersey FamilyCare Medicaid. But if Social Security sends any requests for information, the parents must respond promptly. Now we have another hypothetical example. I'm calling her Alicia. Alicia started to receive SSI and Medicaid at age 18. She started to receive DDD services at age 21. She is now 35 years old. She has worked part-time, about 10 hours a week for many years, and Alicia started to receive SSDI on her own work record. But because the SSDI amount is low, about $350 a month, she receives both SSDI income and SSI income. Neither of Alicia's parents are receiving Social Security, retirement, or disability benefits. Her parents are alive. Because Alicia is still receiving some SSI income every month, her parents will not need to complete a Medicaid redetermination application from New Jersey FamilyCare Medicaid. But if Social Security sends any requests for information, the parents must respond promptly. Now we have another hypothetical example for Damien. Damien started to receive SSI and Medicaid at age 18 and started to receive DDD services at age 21. He's now 35 years old and he has never been employed. Damien's mother started collecting her Social Security retirement benefit a few years ago. Mom completed additional paperwork for Social Security. Damien's SSI stopped because he started to receive SSDI at $1,300 a month on his mother's work record. When Damien's SSDI benefit was starting, DDD sent Damien's mother a request for information, RFI packet for Damien. Mom completed the RFI Medicaid application promptly, and Damien now has NJ Medicaid instead of the SSI Medicaid package. Mom will need to complete the Medicaid renewal application promptly whenever it arrives in the mail. And this is the final hypothetical example of Kimberly. Kimberly was not eligible for SSI because her father passed away when she was 16, and she received an SSDI survivor's benefit of $1,600 a month. Prior to her 21st birthday, Kimberly was approved for New Jersey Medicaid from the DDD waiver unit, and her mom submitted a Medicaid application. Kimberly received DDD services at age 21. Kimberly's mother has completed Medicaid renewals for her daughter in the past, most recently in June 2022. Mom will need to complete the Medicaid renewal application promptly whenever it arrives in the mail, which could be in June of 2023, which would be a year after she last did it. Now, that's not a guarantee. We think that might happen, but there's no guarantee that it will exactly be 12 months after mom had done the previous renewal. So the good news here is the Medicaid managed care organizations, the MCOs, are helping with this process. Starting in April, at the beginning of each month, for 12 months, we expect the Medicaid MCOs to send postcards to people who will receive a Medicaid renewal that month. So this is what we think the wording is going to be. And I have some postcards that arrived from DMOS yesterday afternoon. This slide was written before that. So the anticipated wording is, your NJ FamilyCare renewal mail is coming very soon. Please open it and follow instructions right away if you want to keep your health care coverage. And then at the end of the month, the Medicaid MCO will call, email, or text to confirm that the Medicaid enrollee received and responded to the renewal application. So here's some additional information that may be helpful for people to know about during this process. What if the deadline to return the renewal application is only a day or two after you've actually received that application? The county Medicaid offices are required to extend the deadline printed in the letter that accompanies the renewal application for a reasonable amount of time upon request by calling the phone number in the cover letter. We have been told that there will be a 30-day period between when the application is sent from the county until the deadline date appears on the letter to return it. But we know that with delays in the mail and possibly delays in actually getting this application, or the many, many applications for renewal, into the mail, that there could be quite a bit of lag time. We hope not, but it is possible. So that's why I put this information in the slide, that if there isn't sufficient time from when you get this, and then the cover letter says it must be returned by such and such date, that you definitely should call the phone number in the cover letter and request an extension on returning the renewal application. What should families do if the bank account of the person with IDD exceeds the $2,000 limit as soon as the SSDI money is deposited? The SSDI benefits are income in the month received and a resource in the month after. These funds should be spent down each month, paying for living expenses or for anything for the sole benefit of the recipient. The funds deposited in the bank account at the beginning of the month will not count as a resource until the CWA, meaning the Medicaid office, does the renewal. So you always want to spend down the money in the month that it's received, and then the next month more money is going to be coming in. This is also extremely important. When Medicaid staff are reviewing the renewal applications, if the staff determine that some individuals are not eligible for Medicaid in the category they previously had, the Medicaid staff are required to review for all other Medicaid categories for which that person may be eligible. So this is a federal regulation, and we expect that the staff will abide by this at the county offices. However, it is also possible with all of the new staff that have been hired recently and all of the renewal applications that are going to be coming in, it could happen that somebody could get a termination notice. And in just a few minutes, you're going to be hearing a presentation from Lee Ginsberg about the issue of termination notices. It's possible that staff might not have understood sufficiently how to check for all other categories for which a person with IDD might be eligible. But you should know it is a federal requirement that they must do this. And if they haven't done it, that's where it's very important to know how to file for a Medicaid fair hearing, which is coming up in the next presentation. I'm going to talk quickly about ABLE accounts. I'm guessing that you probably already know a lot about ABLE, so I'll go through this very quickly. ABLE stands for Achieving a Better Life Experience, passed by at the federal level back in 2014. People with disabilities can deposit up to $17,000 a year in an ABLE tax-exempt savings account. If the resources are too high, you can transfer money into an ABLE account to keep Medicaid eligibility. This is a very easy thing to do for anybody who hasn't been paying as careful attention to how much resources your son or daughter or other loved one with IDD has. Open an ABLE account and transfer money in there. It's easy, it's quick, it's legal, and it won't affect continuing financial eligibility for Medicaid, SSI, or other public benefits. You can open an ABLE account in New Jersey or in another state. There's the link. There's also an ABLE National Resource Center, which is a very good nonprofit organization with state-specific information. They provide webinars. It's a wonderful site for anybody who wants to know more about ABLE accounts. I need to read to you this bullet on the last bullet on this page. Upon the death of the beneficiary, the state in which he or she lived may file a claim for all or a portion of the funds in the ABLE account to recoup costs paid by the state while the beneficiary was receiving services through the state Medicaid program. So you just need to be aware of that. I'm definitely not going to read this slide. It's a great slide with a lot of information. It's about ABLE accounts, and it was developed by the ARC of New Jersey Family Institute. So when you get a copy of these slides, you can read this in detail. NJ workability improvements. I get asked a lot about the improvements that are coming. There was legislation signed by Governor Murphy back in January of 2022. We have been eagerly awaiting the implementation of these improvements. And so here, this is the information that is accurate as of today, March 25th. The improvements have been divided into a phase 1 and phase 2. The anticipated implementation for phase 1 should be very soon, and I will absolutely announce to everybody on my list as soon as we have definite information on this implementation. And just by the way, if anybody is not on my listserv and wants to be on it, go to my website, www.mainstreamingmedicalcare.org. These are the things that are included in phase 1 implementation for NJ workability improvements, allowing for the continuation of NJ workability for 12 months after a job loss. It expands eligibility to those 65 years of age and older, meaning no one who has NJ workability will be terminated on their 65th birthday. It eliminates resource limits altogether. At the moment, the current resource limit is $20,000, but when phase one is implemented, there will be no more resource limits for people who have NJ workability Medicaid. And it removes consideration of a spouse's income. Phase two implementation. We do not yet have a date for this. I know I've been asked numerous times, when will this happen? I do not know, but I absolutely will announce it as soon as I do know. What will happen in phase two? It removes the regulation on so-called unearned income from a parent's SSDI. This year, that threshold is $1,215 a month in SSDI from a parent's work record, meaning if a person with IDD is getting this so-called unearned SSDI from the parent's work record, and if that amount exceeds $1,215 a month, then they are not eligible for NJ workability Medicaid. After the phase two implementation, they would be eligible. Another piece of information that we've heard from DMAS, we expect if people with IDD already have NJ workability, we expect that their Medicaid renewal will be during the last 3 months of the unwinding process, meaning January through March 2024. There are medical assistance customer centers, or MAC offices, throughout the state. There are just a few offices, but they cover multiple counties. So I'm not going to read the slides, but you can see that we have a Camden office, an Essex office on the next slide, an office in Monmouth, an office in Passaic. So these offices cover the entire state. And this really is a good place for customer service answers to Medicaid questions. I expect that these offices are going to get lots and lots of questions during Medicaid renewal period, but it's important for you to know how to call those offices if you need that kind of help. This slide, and I'm not going to read this slide, but you'll be able to see it when you have a chance to see these slides. This was produced by the New Jersey Department of Human Services with a timeline for the whole eligibility unwinding process. Okay, now the next few slides are the brand new slides, the brand new attachments that we received yesterday that were turned into slides for today's presentation. And we greatly appreciate Jennifer Jacobs and her staff. They knew that I was doing this presentation today, and they got this to us yesterday afternoon. So there are a few things that are here. This is new, and you probably have not seen this before. This is to take a look at the postcards that I mentioned earlier in this presentation. Each of the 5 Medicaid managed care organizations will be sending out a postcard that in the colors that you see based on which Medicaid managed care organization your loved one is enrolled in, about don't forget to check your mail in English and Spanish. And so that is, again, another way to let people know your Medicaid renewal is coming that month. This is a look at what the envelopes may look like at the point that you actually are getting the Medicaid renewal application. Now, this is the form cover letter at the top saying, renew your Medicaid benefits. So on the left side, it just is NJ FamilyCare, but on the right side, it actually does mention Medicaid. Renew your Medicaid benefits. Dear NJ FamilyCare, aged, blind, disabled program beneficiary, talking about what the person is going to need to provide. Now, and I'm not sure how much you can see this, but when you get to see the slides, you'll actually have all of this information. where it says all beneficiaries, they need to provide what their current income is, and the second bullet there, the most recent statement for all bank accounts, including accounts closed since your last determination. There were discussions earlier about how many bank statements would be required. We in the advocacy community thought it would be burdensome for families to have to provide multiple bank statements. Per this cover letter, I was very, very pleased to see that people will be asked for the most recent bank statement. Also, and you're not able to see it on the slides, but the actual ABD renewal application is available. It comes after the cover letter. We weren't able to put it into the slide, but anybody who wants to see exactly what this renewal application looks like, it's posted on my website. So you can see it from the link at the top of this slide. Another easy way for anybody who wants to see what this renewal application looks like, you could just go to the main website for the ARC, www.arcnj.org. At the top of the homepage is information about Medicaid unwinding and a way to click and get right to all of the information. We have set up a new page on Medicaid unwinding because we just thought we're getting so many questions now and it hasn't even officially started yet. So we thought it would be helpful for people to have a way to easily get that information. And one last thing that I want to just call to your attention with regard to the renewal application, hopefully in an effort to prevent problems when the renewal application is reviewed. There is a question in the renewal application at the top of page 3. So the one question says, does the applicant have a history of intellectual and developmental disability? Well, that's easy. The answer is yes. But right below it is a question. Does the beneficiary need nursing home-like services, LTSS, such as dressing, bathing, and mobility assistance, yes or no? The answer should be no. I know there are families, many families, that their family member does need this kind of assistance. But if you check yes to that question, it can trigger mistakenly that the County Board of Social Services is going to think this person really needs managed long-term services and supports, which is very different from DDD services, and will set up a whole cascade of erroneous activity which can delay the approval, having a nurse come to the home to assess whether the person needs managed long-term services and supports. It could be a mess. So I'm suggesting that you answer no to that particular question. Sometimes families have said to me, but their family member does need this assistance. And they don't want to check off no because that's really not true. If that's your thinking, check off no in that part of the application and do a cover letter that explains why you said no, that your family member has DDD services, needs to continue DDD services, and therefore you checked off no to that particular question. Okay, this is my very, very last slide. This is my contact information at the ARC of New Jersey. My email address is broberts@arcnj.org. My website, www.mainstreamingmedicalcare.org. Thank you so much. I think it's time now for the next presentation.
Okay, thanks everybody. Thanks for inviting me here. My name is Lee Ginsberg. I'm a senior attorney at the Community Health Law Project. Many of you may be familiar with us, but for those who aren't, I'm going to first give a brief introduction as to what we do and what we cover, and then I'm going to talk about the reason I'm here, which I want to, following up on Bev's outstanding presentation. She's an incredible resource in many areas, including this critical area. So I really want to thank her for what she does and for her presentation. My piece is a little bit smaller than hers for this presentation. What I am primarily going to talk about in a few minutes is what happens if the worst happens in this process, and you do get a letter from DMOS saying that your Medicaid, or from the county really saying that your Medicaid is being terminated. So we'll go over some of the reasons that may happen, as well as what to do if that happens. Okay, so first of all, the Community Health Law Project is, just briefly, if you can go to the next slide. We were founded in 1976. We're a New Jersey statewide nonprofit advocacy and legal services organization, which provides legal representation to low-income individuals with disabilities. And we cover people with almost any type of disability, including intellectual disabilities and developmental disabilities. And as I said, we are free in almost all cases. We are the services we provide, whether representation or advice, are free of service. So we encourage anyone, to reach out to one of our offices to see if we can help, not only in this area but in a few other areas, which I'll talk about in a minute. Okay, next slide, please. The Community Health Law Project, we have 5 direct service areas that cover the whole, direct service offices that cover the whole state of New Jersey. At the end, there's a list of the offices with our contact information. We also have 4 satellite offices as well that also cover many areas of New Jersey. So we cover the whole state, every county. The types of cases we handle include Medicaid and Medicare cases, including advice and representation, including, of course, appeals of denials or terminations, or reduction of Medicaid or Medicare benefits. So that includes cases involving private duty nursing, personal care assistance, durable medical equipment. We also handle Social Security disability and SSI appeals and denials. We also handle landlord-tenant matters, matters involving public entitlements, including food stamps, emergency housing assistance, and cash welfare benefits. We also handle disability discrimination cases, including housing discrimination, employment discrimination. We also get involved in special education matters, consumer law, and also on a limited basis, guardianships. So we do a lot more, but those are some of the highlights of what we do. Okay, so again, I want to get in now to the heart of my presentation, which is Medicaid appeal rights. So if the county decides to terminate Medicaid benefits for any reason, they must mail you a written notice prior to the effective date of the termination. The termination notice, so again, it has to be prior to the date. They can't mail it to you, after the fact. It's not good enough if they call you and say we're terminating or denying your Medicaid benefits. They have to legally send you a written notice prior to the date of termination. If they don't do that, then there are legal grounds to, even if there are factual grounds to terminate. If they don't give proper notice, then legally it is not a proper termination and it should be rescinded. But again, that is a basic right that is important to know about. The termination notice must state the reason or reasons that the county believes that you are no longer eligible for Medicaid. And it also has to include information about how to file an appeal, where to send the appeal to, and how long you have to do so. And we'll get into the details of that in just a minute. Common reasons for Medicaid termination are excess income, excess resources where resource limits apply, and not sending back your renewal form or not providing all of the required information on the renewal form. It can also include failing to send in a bank statement where you have a bank account and you may send in the form but not attach or send it in the bank statement. In my experience prior to the pandemic with Medicaid terminations, it's very uncommon. I mean, sorry, very common, too common, that the decisions are incorrect, that something they're wrong on the law, or they're wrong in interpreting the income or resources. It's very, very common, too common that bad decisions are made. There's a lot of reasons for that. A lot of it is that I think in general, the workers at county offices, some are good, but some are not so great. As Bev was saying, there's a lot of new workers over the last few years that are not experienced and may not have the best training. It's hard to say, but I can't tell you how many cases that we've seen in the past, even before this unwinding, where there were really bad decisions that were incorrect. And so it's, so basically, my number one maybe takeaway on this is if you get a termination, don't give up. We're going to go through how you appeal in a minute and how we can help, how my organization can help, but don't give up if it's, if you get a termination notice, even if you think maybe they're right, probably they're right. It's not always the case by any means. Okay. All right, so going to the next slide. Okay, so as the law stands right now, if you get a termination notice, you have only 20 days from the date of the notice to file an appeal. That is a very short time frame, in my opinion. And prior to the pandemic, there was a lot of issues with people not appealing on time. That 20 days goes very quickly, especially because it's 20 days from the date of the notice, not 20 days necessarily from when you receive it. So, there is there's advocacy out there to try to get that appeal time frame, lengthened from 20 days, but as of now, it is still 20 days, from the date of the notice. And so, check your mail very carefully, obviously, especially now. And if you get anything from the county, Board of Social Services, you should very definitely open that immediately. If you file the appeal on time, you have the right to request and receive continuing Medicaid benefits during the entire appeals process. So that is an incredibly important right. And, you should always request continuing benefits. If you get the termination and you file an appeal, you should request the continuing benefits in your appeal letter or your appeal form. And the reason for that, one of the reasons that it's very important, is because the hearing process typically takes at least 3 to 4 months, and sometimes much longer, before there's a final decision. And obviously, it's critical to maintain your benefits, to maintain the insurance during this somewhat lengthy to very lengthy time period. So, and there often are, in my experience before the pandemic, I don't know why this was, but there were many cases where people did file, an appeal on time and seemed clear that they were requesting continuing benefits, but they were not getting them. By the time the case got to me or my office, they were not getting them, so many times I'd have to call DMAS and inquire about that. And typically then there would be no problem. They would get the benefits turned back on, but but you don't want to, any kind of gap in benefits that can cause a lot of problems, a lot of practical problems with your MCO and your medical providers themselves. So incredibly important to file the appeal on time and request that the benefits continue during the appeal process. So the appeal itself must be mailed or faxed to the address or fax number listed on the notice. Now, I don't think they've put out the actual termination notices, an example of what they will look like. I imagine they will be similar to termination notices that they've used in the past, but we don't know for sure. But basically, there definitely will be, specific instructions on where the appeal goes to. It will go to the state Medicaid agency, DMAS, Division of Medical Assistance and Health Services. They have a special unit that handles appeals. In the past, you were also able to fax an appeal form to that number that they would give you that they didn't require to be mailed. I'm not 100% sure what the process will be in these cases, but again, the specific information I'm sure will be in there as to exactly the mechanics of filing the appeal. Okay, next slide. Okay, so the appeal must be in writing, and at least in the past, and I assume this will be the case in the future, an appeals form should be attached to the termination notice. It's a very simple form, but you don't have to use that form. You can just write a letter if you want. But the form, there should be a form in there, a very simple form. The actual appeal letter does not need to go into any detail as to why you disagree or may disagree with the decision. Technically, it doesn't even have to give any reason why you disagree, but so you can, it's fairly simple, to write the appeal letter. Technically all you need to do is say, I disagree with this decision. If you're mailing the appeal in, or faxing it, it's a good idea to attach the decision itself to the appeal form or appeal letter, but again, it does not have to go into detail as to, your situation or why you disagree with the decision. You do not need an advocate or a lawyer to file a Medicaid appeal, and most appeals are filed without a lawyer. However, and that's especially important to know if you are nearing the 20-day deadline. If you're close to it and really don't have time to talk to a lawyer or an advocate, you should definitely, it's critically important to go ahead and file that appeal so you don't miss the deadline. File it on your own. But if you're not near the deadline, and it's advisable to speak with an experienced advocate or lawyer prior to filing, and just to make sure that it's done right. Lawyers like myself, if we're going to get involved in any case, especially a case like this, the earlier you get to us, the better. The earlier I get the case, the better. I prefer, to file the appeal myself, just to make sure that it gets to the right place, and that they know that the state knows right away that I am involved, my office is involved. So, if you're thinking about, using our services, you want to call us or call my office as soon as possible after you get the letter. And if there's still a good amount of time, before the deadline to file the appeal, it'd be better to call us before the appeal is actually filed. Okay, so the appeal is sent, as I said, to the state Medicaid department, DMAS, the Division of Medical Assistance and Health Services, and they then transfer the appeal to something called the New Jersey Office of Administrative Law, which is known as OAL, and then it gets assigned to an administrative law judge or ALJ for scheduling of a hearing. And OAL, Office of Administrative Law, they have 3 main offices throughout the state, one in near Trenton, in Mercerville, Hamilton, and they have an office in Newark, and they have a small office in Atlantic City. Before the pandemic, the appeals, these types of appeals would be heard either in person at one of those 3 offices that have courtrooms, or in many cases, judges would kind of go once a week to different counties, different county locations where they would have off-site hearings, in-person hearings. Right now, OAL in general is still doing virtual hearings, even phone hearings, but I am hoping in most ways that in the near future, they will go back to in-person hearings. So we'll see what happens there. But right now, that's the process of where these appeals go to, and the route that they take before you get an actual hearing. Okay, next slide. So, Medicaid appeal is a proceeding against the county and the state Medicaid department that gives you an opportunity to present your case either in person or virtually before an administrative law judge. So the administrative law judge hears the evidence presented by both sides in the form of documents and sworn testimony, and decides whether the county's decision to terminate benefits was correct. So in order to have a good chance of winning the appeal, you must be prepared in advance to present documents and witnesses that you believe support that the county's decision was not correct. So it's from personal experience, these cases can be, in some cases they're fairly simple, but in many cases they can be very complex. And whether they're simple or complex, it's critical to really plan a lot, prepare a lot beforehand to really understand, why the county made the decision that they did, and then understand and know, what you have to prove to counter that, and what you have to prove to show that you or your loved one is in fact eligible, that the decision was wrong. And that can involve some legal analysis, which of course can be very difficult for non-lawyers or non-trained advocates. And it also requires, getting documentation together, getting witnesses who have hopefully firsthand knowledge of things that would disprove the county's beliefs or the decision that they made. So you really have to think about this beforehand. You can't just show up on the hearing date and go from there and kind of wing it. That's a plan for disaster, obviously in virtually any situation, but definitely in these situations as well. So to do these right, to have a good chance of winning, it takes a lot of planning, a lot of work, and it's can be very hard to do if you don't have a trained lawyer or advocate that's there to help you and hopefully represent you. Okay. All right, next slide. Thanks. Okay, so just give a little bit of a flavor for how these hearings work. If it's in person, as we expect that it will be in the near future, you're going to be in a courtroom with representatives from the County Board of Social Services who made the decision, and you, and as well as the judge and any witnesses that you might bring with you, and you're all going to be presenting sworn testimony as well as documents to the judge. And the hearings are there's no transcriber, but they are tape recorded. So there's an audio recording of each hearing. After the hearing, the ALJ issues a written decision that is a recommended decision only. It is kind of a tricky part of the process here, that the ALJ's decision is not the final decision on the appeal. The ALJ's decision is a recommended decision that has to be transmitted immediately to the director of DMOS, and the DMOS director, after she gets the decision, has 45 days to review the ALJ's decision and issue a new written decision that becomes what's called the final agency decision. And so it's important to keep in mind. The ALJ's decision is often approved by DMAS, but definitely not always. I've had many cases, unfortunately, where we won with the ALJ, got a favorable decision from the ALJ, but then the decision was reversed or partially reversed by the DMAS director. Also, this extra step of review by DMAS makes the process much longer because they have up to 45 days to make a new decision. And in my experience, they very often, almost invariably, in fact, go beyond that 45-day limit. And in order to do that, they have to technically file a motion with the chief judge of the Office of Administrative Law to get more time to make their decision. Technically, if they don't do that, if they don't make a decision within 45 days and they don't make a motion for more time, then the ALJ's decision becomes the final decision. But invariably, they will make the motion always. I think I've never heard of a case where the OAL does not agree to give them more time. And so, this helps make this a very lengthy process in almost all cases. If the ALJ, but before we get to that point, before we get to the DMAS review decision or final agency decision, if the ALJ's recommended decision is not favorable to you, if they uphold the determination of benefits, you have 7 days, only 7 days from the date of the decision to write a letter to the DMAS director explaining why you disagree with the ALJ's decision. This is known as an exceptions letter, and that's a very short time frame. They might be willing to extend that a little bit, but that can be very difficult for people to do, to write such a letter, an effective letter, without having an experienced lawyer or advocate to help with that or do that for you. Okay, next slide. Okay, so the Medicaid director, DMAS director, can accept, reject, or modify the ALJ's decision. If the director's decision, which, as I said before, becomes what's called the final agency decision, if that is still unfavorable to you, you have 45 days to file an appeal to the Appellate Division of New Jersey Superior Court in Trenton. So at that point, the case goes outside of the administrative court system or OAL system and goes to the regular New Jersey state court system. And the problem with that is that at that point, up until that point, from the date that you file your appeal letter to the to DMAS, until the point when there is a final agency decision, which might be against you, up until that point, which can take many months, can take a minimum 3 to 4 months usually, and can easily take up to a full year in some cases. Up until that point, you are still entitled to have the Medicaid benefits continue unreduced in any way up until the final agency decision. And that's important to know. So even if the ALJ decision is negative and upholds the determination, even if that recommended decision is against you, you still have the right to keep the benefits going until there's a final agency decision made by the Medicaid director's office. That's important to know. Sometimes benefits will get cut off, especially by the MCO itself. They sometimes will get cut off if there is a negative ALJ decision, but you definitely have the right to continue the benefits until there's a final agency decision that would be against you. Once there is that final agency decision against you, you have the right to appeal, but you do not have an automatic right to have the benefits continue while the case is being appealed to the Appellate Division of New Jersey Superior Court. So it is possible to file a motion with the Appellate Division to try to get the termination stayed or held off during the time period that the appeal is pending with the Appellate Division. But That is not an easy process. It's far from automatic. So that's important to know. So the case gets much tougher if the final agency's decision is against you, but the appeal process is still there at the state level. The state appeals are very lengthy. That the appeals to the appellate division are very lengthy, usually 6 to 9 months, maybe even more, and require the filing of a legal brief explaining in detail why you believe that the final agency decision was incorrect. And it's very especially difficult at this stage to succeed without the assistance of an experienced lawyer who has experience with these appeals. If the appellate division decision is unfavorable, it's possible to go beyond that and file an appeal with the New Jersey Supreme Court, but you do not have an automatic right to have an appeal from the appellate division heard by the Supreme Court. They will take cases that they think are, they can pick and choose which cases they take in most cases. So I don't want to go into detail on that, but there is a possibility of appeal to the New Jersey Supreme Court if the appellate division case is against you. Okay. All right. So then I want to go on to the next slide. So I want to talk now about what Community Health Law Project or CHLP, what we can do for you, if you get into this situation, or if you're, not just problems with an appeal, but any issues at all that, with this entire process, with the entire renewal or redetermination process. So, as I said, we're willing, CHLP, we're committed, statewide to try to make this process as easy and as simple as possible for, anyone that qualifies for our service. And this may include assistance with completing the redetermination paperwork, assistance with actually filing appeals, the mechanics of filing appeals, analyzing whether the county's decision to terminate was correct, and representation at OAL hearings for cases where we believe that the county decision was incorrect. All of these services, as I said before, if you qualify, are free of charge. In most cases, there's no reason, to not try to call us and see what we can do to help you. And again, you don't have to wait to call us, until there's been a decision against you. If you have any trouble, any issues with filling out the paperwork, filling out the form that Dev went over, or getting copies of your bank statements or any other documentation that the county may require, we can assist with that, give you advice, and possibly get involved in the mechanics of fixing whatever the problem may be. As far as representing someone at the OAL for a hearing, we're gonna do that in as many cases as we can. The primary criteria for that, whether we do that or not, is going to be whether or not we think there is a realistic chance of winning the case. If it's a case where it seems clear to us that the county's decision is correct, that the determination is correct, then we don't have the resources to get involved in cases and very time-consuming cases like this unless there is a realistic chance of winning. But we will be honest, we will tell you what we think. If that is the case, that we think that the decision is correct, we will let you know that, and then go over options for you, including how to get other types of medical insurance that hopefully would be affordable to you and your family. Okay, next slide. Okay, so the last thing I want to go into is how to contact us. As I said earlier, we have 5 main offices, one in Bloomfield, one in Elizabeth, one in Hamilton, where I work out of the Hamilton office. We cover primarily Burlington, Mercer, and Middlesex counties. That's my office. But the other offices, I can't be precise right now with what counties they all cover, but you can call any of these numbers. Call the number that is closest to you, closest to where you live, and it will tell you right away if you need to call a different office. But so on this page and the next page has all 5 of our main offices. So again, I want to encourage everyone to call us. Our eligibility standards are somewhat flexible. You have to have low income, but virtually anyone that is on fixed income, getting government benefits is going to be eligible. We go up to at least, in most cases, 250% of the federal poverty level as far as income eligibility. And, we only count the adult, if it's an adult person that is going through this, we only count in most cases their income, not family income. So, in most cases, there should be eligibility as far as financial eligibility. And, so please call us and see what we can do for you. And just the last thing, the biggest takeaway from this is, if you get a termination notice, you should definitely appeal, unless you are absolutely 100% sure that the decision is correct and it's going to be a waste of time. You should appeal. It does not hurt to appeal. If it turns out that later that you find out that the decision is correct, at any point, it's easy to withdraw your appeal. Filing an appeal is also free. There's no cost. There's no filing fee or court fee to file. So if in doubt at all, even 1% in doubt, you should file the appeal. Make sure you file it on time if that's possible. If it's filed out of time, if you get it, or if you're out of time, don't give up, because I mentioned before, and I want to really stress that there can be a lot of what are called good cause reasons for late filing of an appeal like this, and the state and the county has to be somewhat liberal, hopefully very liberal, as far as finding good cause for allowing late appeals. And especially with these cases, there can be a lot of cases where people have moved and unfortunately maybe not given a new address, or the county is using an old address that is not correct, even if the family has updated their address. So obviously, not getting the renewal notice, or even if you get the renewal notice, but you don't get the actual termination decision in the mail, those can and should be good cause reasons for late filing of an appeal. But there are many other reasons, including the disability themselves. If the person has a disability that makes it hard for them to function practically, or to even to understand the decision, or to complete the renewal form, that also can be and should be good cause for a late appeal. So again, please, if in doubt, file the appeal immediately, but please also don't hesitate to contact us for any type of assistance. Thank you.
Just a quick check. When's the end of our session? How much time do we have altogether? Great. Give me all just a second. I'm going to get myself into the Zoom meeting and share the screen right from the laptop. And while I do this, I'll introduce myself. Good morning, everybody. My name is Michael Brower. I'm the legal director at Disability Rights New Jersey. Disability Rights New Jersey, if you're not familiar with us, we are the state designated protection and advocacy system for people with disabilities. We are a private nonprofit. We provide no-cost legal services to people with disabilities of all kinds. Anything from intellectual developmental disabilities, physical disability, mental health conditions, traumatic brain injuries, you name it. If you're a person with a disability, we provide services. I mentioned that we are the protection and advocacy system for people with disabilities. Really comes with two different hats that we wear. Protection on one side is a unique federal authority that Congress gave us to investigate and monitor for abuse and neglect. There is a protection and advocacy system like us in all 50 states, all the territories. And there's an additional protection and advocacy system that covers the Four Corners regions in the Southwest United States. And all of us have the same authority to go unannounced and unaccompanied into any kind of facility that serves a person with a disability, whether that be a developmental center, a psychiatric hospital, a nursing home, a group home, a sheltered workshop, a jail, a prison, any place that you might find a person with disabilities. We can walk on in, take a look around, and really watch out for bad conditions. We can also investigate specific allegations of abuse and neglect. That could be based on a tip, a newspaper article, a specific complaint, maybe even a state investigation that's already been concluded. We might take a second look at that to make sure that the facts were all brought to the surface and that any kind of corrective action that was needed to be taken by, say, a licensing agency was actually taken, or if it hasn't been brought to the attention of a licensing agency, somebody with the authority to stop abuse and neglect, we can bring our facts and our investigation to them in order to prevent abuse and neglect. That's all the protection side. On the advocacy side, that's where I work. We have a team of advocates and lawyers who provide individual and systemic legal advocacy for people with disabilities, meaning individual clients can call us, ask for legal help on a problem related to their disability. We can provide anything from advice to full-on representation, and we take cases from the administrative level all the way to the Supreme Court, depending on what's going on and depending on the priorities and funding that are set by our board. We're funded primarily by federal grants, but we also receive private donations, state grants, and other foundation and nonprofit support to help us in our mission. With that, I'm going to get into the meat of our conversation today. And with any success, I'll be able to share my slides and not break it. We'll see. The Zoom bar is in my way. There we go. Great. So for my portion of our presentation this morning, I wanted to talk a little bit about the different Medicaid eligibility groups. You've heard from Bev about the importance of the Medicaid redeterminations resuming starting in April, about how that matters for your eligibility to continue. A lot of the folks in this session are probably in or loved ones with the somebody with a loved one in the developmental disability system or served by DDD. There's one really, really important fact that's important to just put right out there and say it right at the top. If you want to continue receiving services from DDD, you need to be Medicaid eligible. If you don't have Medicaid or if you lose your Medicaid, you either can't get or you stop getting services from DDD. If you live in a group home, if you receive individual services in your home, in a family home, maybe you live in a supported apartment, or maybe you have self-directed employees that are all funded through a DDD waiver program, you need Medicaid to get and to keep those. I'm going to skip over the introductions. I did that a little bit ago. The other takeaway I want to provide here is that there are multiple ways to be eligible for Medicaid. Bev touched on a few of those during her segment. It's important to know, and I think Lee said it very well, don't give up. If you have during the pandemic experienced some kind of a change in circumstance. Maybe back in 2020, you had SSI and you've lost SSI now. Maybe you started working, your income has gone up. Maybe a parent has retired or become disabled or passed away and you've started receiving SSDI on their account and your income has gone up and you've lost your SSI. All is not lost. You shouldn't say, well, gee, I lost my SSI. I think I'm going to lose my Medicaid too. There's a federal requirement that Bev mentioned. It's worth repeating, that before your Medicaid is terminated, technically before you even receive a termination notice, the Medicaid agency is supposed to review every individual for every possible Medicaid eligibility group there is. And before they send the termination notice, switch them before terminating them. So if you previously had SSI and you might be eligible through one of the other doors, You're supposed to be shifted seamlessly from one to another without an interruption in your Medicaid service, without the need to reapply, to be terminated and get back in. It should be from one to the other on the back end. You may be notified of that process, but you shouldn't be terminated if you're actually still eligible. And you only need to be eligible under one of the programs. So you don't need to have whatever you came in from in the first place. Again, if you started with SSI and you've transitioned to a different door, you don't need to keep eligibility for both. As long as you've got one, you're good and you can keep your DDD benefits. So I want to talk a little bit about what those different doors are. On our screen here, we have a bunch of doors, and this is a graphic. Actually, I've got to thank my boss, Gwen Orlowski. She developed this several years ago with the help of Rutgers. And I've expanded it a little bit to kind of update it for the Medicaid eligibility doors that are out there today. You'll see that each door is decorated with either a green circle, which kind of looks like a wreath now that I see it up here, or a big red X. And over top of them all is an umbrella with the New Jersey FamilyCare logo. And New Jersey FamilyCare, like a Band-Aid, conveniently in that, is a brand name. That means Medicaid in New Jersey. It also means the Children's Health Insurance Program in New Jersey. They're both called New Jersey FamilyCare. So it's important to kind of keep in your brain, if you're talking about an adult with disabilities, somebody who's over the age of 21, New Jersey FamilyCare, we're talking about Medicaid. If we're talking about a child, somebody who's younger than 21, we might be talking about CHIP, or the Children's Health Insurance Program. Both have the same name. And there's some other programs that are technically Medicaid programs that don't really fit under the eligibility of full, or don't fit under the umbrella. And I think this graphic captures that okay. If your goal is to keep DDD services, you want one of the doors that are under the umbrella and have a green circle on them. They're good to go. That green tells you that you're good to go. If you have one of the doors that's outside of the umbrella with a red X, you still get benefits. Those might still be very valuable and important, but it's not going to be one of the doors that gets you to Medicaid or that gets you to DDD eligibility. Those two doors outside of the umbrella, and we'll talk about them at the end real quick, are Medicare savings programs. Tricky because Medicare is in the name, but these are technically Medicaid programs that help pay things like the Medicare premium, cost share, prescription coverage under Part D. Those Medicare savings programs do not get you Medicaid of the kind that you need for DDD. So if you get switched to one of those, you have to know that's not going to be enough to keep DDD services if you had them before. The other door outside of the umbrella is MLTSS, Managed Long-Term Services and Supports. Bev talked about that little checkbox that talks about needing long-term services and supports. MLTSS is a different waiver program. You cannot be on MLTSS and one of the DDD programs like supports or community care program at the same time. You can either be on one or the other. If you want MLTSS services, that's fine. You can switch. Just know that you're going to lose DDD services. And again, if you're somebody who lives in a DDD funded group home, MLTSS will not pay for that. You will have to move. So that's a really important thing. If you're looking about, being switched from one door to another, MLTSS, I put a red X only for DDD purposes. You cannot keep both. I'm going to talk about the eligibility criteria for these different doors. And I want to really emphasize, I'm not saying this so that you memorize the numbers or so that you know, what are the resource limits, what are the income limits? That's not the point. The point is to get a sense that there are multiple doors out there. The eligibility criteria are different, and sometimes they are dramatically more favorable, and sometimes they are much more restrictive. The point is to know you should check to see if you're eligible for something else before giving up on a Medicaid appeal. I would also echo what Lee said. If you have the ability to reach out to an attorney, whether that's at Community Health Law Project, at Disability Rights New Jersey, to speak with us about your eligibility, we'd be happy to advise you and to help you walk through the finances to figure out, okay, maybe you lost door number one, but maybe you can go in through door number 3. Let's see if we can help you make that transition without, hopefully without even needing to go to a hearing. All right, we're first to talk about SSI-related Medicaid. In New Jersey, if somebody is on SSI, they are automatically enrolled in Medicaid. There's no separate application. There's no renewal process. So if you've had SSI the entire time and you kept your SSI through the pandemic, and as of today, you still have your SSI, you're good. You're not going to have to worry about a whole heck of a lot. The criteria are on the screen. The income limits are relatively low, $945 a month for an individual, and the resource limits are relatively low, no more than about $2,000 worth of resources And resources, we're talking about things like money in the bank, very valuable items. There are some things that are excluded, like houses or cars, if it's your primary residence or your only vehicle. But most other things like jewelry, stocks or bonds, even retirement savings are going to be counted as resources. So $2,000, not very much in today's money. And again, if you have SSI, you're in the SSI door, you're good to go for Medicaid and DDD. There's some information on the screen, no sense reading through it, that just talks about where the Medicaid application can be found to connect you with SSI. There's something called Medicaid only for people who are SSI eligible but do not receive the cash benefit. If you meet the same financial criteria, meaning you're still below the $945 in income and still below the $2,000 a month in assets, you can still receive Medicaid under what's called Medicaid only, meaning you don't get the cash benefit, you just get the Medicaid benefit from Social Security. There's another category called the aged, blind, and disabled, or frequently referred to as ABD. This is a different door than SSI, and you'll see there's actually slightly different criteria. To be eligible, you need a little bit of either clinical or age-based eligibility to be either over age 65 or a disability declaration from the Social Security Administration. That disability declaration can also come from the state Medicaid office. Either one is okay. That's why it's aged and blind, right? It's also meant for older adults, not just people with disabilities. Income limits are a little bit higher for an individual. You're up to 1215, so you're getting a little bit more wiggle room on your income, and you're getting a little bit more wiggle room on resources, double, right? Up to $4,000 for a single person. So this is a little bit more expansive. If you're somebody who maybe just crept out of having SSI, this might be the next stop for you, is aged, blind, or disabled Medicaid. This program is primarily coordinated and administered by the county welfare offices, the CWAs. The website is up on the screen, not going to read that, but know that the Medicaid you get from aged, blind, or disabled Medicaid is exactly the same as the Medicaid you get if you're on SSI. You get all the same benefits, all the same healthcare benefits, and if you're DDD eligible, you can access your DDD benefit too. Nothing special there. The next door that we're going to talk about, and I am moving lightning speed because I want to leave lots of room for questions. This is sometimes called the new adult group, though at this point it's not so new. Sometimes called the Affordable Care Act expansion, Obamacare, Magi Medicaid, a bunch of different names, just putting them out there so that you recognize them if you hear that said to you by a county welfare worker. This is the expansion that went into effect during the Affordable Care Act to expand Medicaid access for people with low incomes, regardless of disability status. There's only a couple of catches. One is you can't be older, you can't be 65 years old or older, and you can't have Medicare. And that makes a little bit of sense because if you think about the conversation that was going on during the passage of Obamacare, it was about insuring uninsured Americans. And if you have Medicare, well, you've got insurance. So you probably don't need Medicaid to provide your insurance. So there's a limitation. If you have Medicare because you receive Social Security disability, right? Remember, if you have SSDI, after 2 years, you're eligible to get Medicare because you're disabled. If you are a younger person than 65 and you start getting Medicare because you get SSDI, you can't go in through this particular door either. But if you don't get Medicare and you're younger than 65 and your income is a little bit higher, $1,677 per month, 138% of poverty line, so that moves every year, you can go in through this door and get Medicaid through the ACA expansion. There is no resource limit. You could have $25 million in the bank. And if you only bring in income, so I guess you get no interest in your bank account. If you bring in income that's less than $1,677 a month, you can be on Affordable Care Act Medicaid. This is one of the ones that's going to cause a problem when redeterminations start rolling, because people who were 63 years old back in 2020 may have passed that 65-year-old mark now. There may be people who just started getting their Social Security disability who now are eligible for Medicare. There may be people who were on this program and had lots and lots of assets, and now they're either aging out or they're getting Medicare, or maybe their income has gone above $1,677 and they have $1 million in the bank. Those other programs I talked about, right? The other doors to get you into Medicaid have relatively low resource limits. So if you had even just $5,000 in the bank, you might have too many resources to get in through SSI. We have too many resources to go into aged, blind, and disabled Medicaid. This is one of those ones where things could have happened over the last couple of years that may move you out of this door and into another. But like Lee said, I'm picking this up. Don't give up. Just because you lost this eligibility, or maybe you've already checked a couple of doors off the list, don't give up. Keep going down the list because there's more choices. Oh, there's an online application for folks who want to get in the door for ACA, but that's really only if you're new to the program. But I've talked about workability. This is another door, and this is about to become one of the most flexible ways to get Medicaid in the country. The current requirements for New Jersey workability are up on the screen, and I've put a lot of red ink there because these are all about to start changing. The expansion of the workability eligibility criteria is going to be a huge opportunity for people to get and keep their Medicaid coverage, especially if they work. That is one of the key things, is that you must work to be eligible for workability. The purpose of this program's existence is to encourage people with disabilities who want to work and who can work to work and make real money without losing their Medicaid benefits. Think about how expensive it is to keep a personal care assistant or live in a group home, right? It costs tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars every year. For you to be able to afford to privately pay that, it's really not fathomable. It's not an affordable thing unless you're making millions of dollars a year. So the criteria here up on the screen, I'm not going to dive into those, both for time and because they're all about to change. The ones in red are the ones that we know are going to change. First off, the age limit is coming off so that you don't have to be within the 16 to 64-year-old group any longer. You know, it's not really realistic. Many people work past age 64 these days. It's not what it was when the program first started. The unearned income limit will be going away. That frequently tripped people up because of Social Security disability on a parent's account most often, or sometimes things like alimony or child support could throw that off, or even just income from a trust. The other thing that goes away will be the resource limits. Again, right now they're $20,000 for a single person, $30,000 for a married person. Without those limits, again, it'll look a little bit more like Affordable Care Act or Obamacare, where there is no limit. You could save all the money you need to, keep it in a regular bank account. It wouldn't even have to be specially put in a retirement account. Right now they don't even count retirement accounts, but in the future, it'll be just wide open. You can save all the money you need to and get yourself into New Jersey workability. If you get New Jersey workability Medicaid, you're good. It's the same Medicaid as the other three I've talked about so far. If you use DDD services and you get your Medicaid eligibility through workability, you're good to go. There's a website up on the screen that has that info, and there's a little link that we're waiting to update once the changes start going live with the new numbers, the new figures, the new criteria. So this is a good one to keep an eye on if you think that you or your loved one is going to work. There's one last thing I want to say about workability is the work requirement is real. You need to be working. You do not need to be making lots and lots of money. I've had clients who babysit a couple of times a month, walk the neighbor's dog, pick up groceries, do a little bit of lawn service. It doesn't have to be a lot of income. It just has to be documented income. So that means you have to be paid above the table. You have to have some kind of a record. If you're required to file taxes based on your income, you have to file for taxes. There's some guidance on the Medicaid website that talks about if you make less than, I think, $400 a year, you're okay, but you have to file a tax return anyway. And that gives you a documentable way to say, I actually indeed made money. There's an argument to be had about whether you even have to file for taxes if you make that little money. But in the name of being safe and secure, documenting the income to prove I in fact work is a key to getting the workability door. That's why I think this is going to be so flexible, because a lot of folks can work and should work and want to work. And even if it's only going to be for a little bit, that gets you Medicaid coverage. It's so valuable. All right, I'm going to shift into the Medicaid eligibility doors that are specific to the DDD community. That is the community care program, the supports program, and supports plus private duty nursing or PDN program. All of these are waiver programs. I mean, these are special income limits that are set only for people who are receiving DDD services or will be receiving DDD services. You'll see the financial eligibility goes up again a little bit. We're now talking about 300% of the federal benefit rate, which is $27.42 this year. The resources, though, stay very low. It's only $2,000 worth of resources. As far as we know, these aren't changing anytime soon. The one little perk that comes with this is that parental Social Security disability. So that's if I'm the beneficiary and my parent dies, becomes disabled, or retires, and I start receiving their benefit or a portion of their benefit for my own self. In the DDD waiver programs, that income is disregarded. So before I start adding up, my work and my Social Security, all these things to get to 2742, I take parental income and I throw it out the window, which is a pretty big benefit. The kick is that you have to be eligible for DDD. In this audience, that's probably not too big of an issue. You're probably already in that door and have already been found clinically eligible for DDD services. And then the private duty nursing that goes with supports plus PDN is funded through the regular Medicaid system. But if you have Medicaid eligibility, which you need in the first place, that happens through the managed care organization separately from the DDD budget. Starting to get into the weeds a little bit. Section 1634, disabled adult child. You heard Bev talk about DAC status. This is a group of individuals who received their own SSI when they were 18 years old, but at some point they stopped receiving SSI because of parental disability income, parental retirement income, or death benefits. For these folks, you actually keep your Medicaid eligibility even if you lose your SSI directly. You don't necessarily have to be in the DDD waiver door for this to kick. It actually applies for anyone in the Medicaid system. It's not specific to people with developmental disabilities. There's a process to get a certification from the Social Security Administration that clarifies, yes, you lost your SSI because your parental Social Security disability or retirement kicked in. And that's called 1634. It's the section of the code that covers this particular coverage. It's meant to keep Medicaid coverage for people who lose their SSI in this circumstance only. There's a resource limit of $2,000, and your other income, the income that doesn't come from parental Social Security, needs to still be below the other limits that we talked about. I put the website on this slide for the DDD Medicaid eligibility help desk is there. They have a little bit of information about how to get in through these doors. We don't have enough time to get into all of that, but know that that website is pretty helpful, and the Medicaid eligibility help desk can also be helpful to you if you're trying to get in through one of the DDD specific doors and you're not already in the system. All right, so this is the big red X. It comes back. These are the ones that you have to watch out for. Medicare savings programs and MLTSS. Totally fine if that's what you want, as long as you know that if you move into these doorways, you do not get or you lose DDD funded services. Managed long-term services and supports, or MLTSS, has the exact same financial criteria as the DDD waiver doors do. $2742 for a single person, $2,000 in resources. It's a little bit more complex. There's a look back period so that if you made transfers before becoming Medicaid eligible, like if you gave away, you had $1 million in the bank and you gave it all to your brother and then applied for Medicaid, you might be penalized for transferring assets that would have made you Medicaid ineligible before applying. There's also ways that you can enter into a special kind of a trust if you have excess income, to put some of your money into a trust that you can use for medical expenses that might go back to the state after you die. A little bit too complex for this particular purpose. Just know that the MLTSS is one of the doors, but not one of the doors that keeps your DDD services. These are some of the services that you do get under MLTSS: personal care assistance, private duty nursing, care management, home and vehicle mods. The idea with MLTSS is it's for individuals who might otherwise live in a nursing home, but who want to stay in their own home or a family home and need extra supports and services to stay there. It's not tailored to provide the kind of supervision and behavioral supports that DDD can provide. The last stop here is the Medicare savings programs. These are for folks, like I mentioned, who are on Medicare but still have low incomes and may not be able to afford the premiums or the cost share or the prescription coverage. These are ways that Medicaid will pay those little bits and contribute back to folks who are low income. Just know that if you are only getting coverage under a Medicare savings program, you're not going to be eligible to get DDD services. The one kind of little green circle I tucked in here is QMB+. These are people who are both Medicaid and Medicare eligible, that are independently Medicaid eligible. If you have Medicaid under any other doors that I put a green circle on, and you might get Medicare too, Medicaid will still pay all those other expenses, but you have your own independent Medicaid coverage. So you can't just be coming in through this door only, if that makes sense. All right, so here's the doors again all together. We talked about everything up here. We talked about the red X's, the ones you have to watch out for. They're still Medicaid, but they're not the kind you want if you want DDD services. We talked about the green circles. Any of these doors will do. We talked a little bit about all the different eligibility. The big thing that I want to get in terms of takeaways here is that there are multiple choices. There's different ways to get into Medicaid. Any of those green doors will get you there and keep your DDD services. You want to watch out for your mail. If you throw your mail in the trash, this is the time to kick that habit and to start looking at your mail. If you throw the notice in the mail in the trash, you're going to miss your chance to even know to ask for help. It's worth repeating. This is the phone number, 1-800-701-0710, to call in and make sure that Medicaid has your home address correct. And now apparently you can update your phone number and your email address so that if for some reason you miss your notice, there might be some additional outreach. You want to do that, even if you know they've already got you right. It may be worth a few minutes to pick up the phone. They've got a dedicated call center and to make sure they've got your address right so that you get all the notices. I put up here Disability Rights New Jersey's contact info, our website, our phone number, our mailing address, our fax, social media, if you care to social media. We are going to be providing legal representation for individuals who rely on Medicaid to get access to home and community-based services. So if you're somebody who gets any kind of a service under the supports program, under the community care program, if you get personal care assistance, even if you're not part of the DDD world yet or at all, personal care assistance, private duty nursing, or MLTSS. If you need any of those services and you get a Medicaid termination notice, we will provide you with legal representation. We'll assist you with advice. We'll provide you representation to a fair hearing until our attorneys are completely swamped. We're hoping that that's not the case. We're hoping that with a lot of cases, we'll be able to analyze your finances and find a quick solution. There's going to be people who fall through the cracks. The system is supposed to check, well, you lost SSI, well, let's check all the other doors first and then send you a termination notice. There are going to be people, there were before the pandemic, there will be after, who the checks don't get completed, right? The handoff doesn't maybe happen from one office to the next. And that leaves somebody with a termination notice who should keep their Medicaid. Similar a little bit to how community health law is handling it. If we talk with you and it turns out that, yep, you now make $2.9 million all in passive resource or passive like investment income, you're not working, but you're rich, you're probably not going to be eligible for Medicaid. We'll tell you so. We're not going to take your appeal. But otherwise, we want to talk to you. I don't think that's going to be the case for very many people. So if you do have a termination notice in your hands, pick up the phone, give us a buzz. We want to make sure that if you should keep your Medicaid, that you do. Thank you all.
Yeah.
First of all, I want to thank Bev and Lee and Michael for really good presentations on a topic that is just so important to all of us and all of our families. So thank you so much. I particularly love the door analogy. I think that really helped make a lot of things very clear for me. We're going to start with questions. A number of questions have been answered in the Q&A, and I'll review those in a moment. But if anyone within the room here has questions, please take this opportunity to raise your hand and we'll try and get them answered. If you just want to run, we'll run a microphone back to you, Dottie. The button's on the bottom.
Actually, does he need to hold it while he speaks or just?
Hello?
There you go.
Hold
You
on.
got it.
If you you become 65, your child has DD, you're Medicaid eligible, has DDD, but the one parent becomes 65, so you have to apply for Medicare, but you're not taking, the benefit. I'm not going to draw my Social Security income, but I know I have to sign up and, either get an Advantage plan or take Part A you know, and be, but, you know, and I know I have to do all that, you know, before I turn 65. How does that impact my daughter with that?
Right, I can answer that. Would you like me to answer?
Yes,
Sure.
thanks, Bev.
Okay, absolutely. So, and I get this question from time to time. The fact that a parent is getting Medicare does not change anything for their son or daughter with IDD at all. Sometimes a parent will say, well, I'm getting Medicare. I thought my son or daughter would get Medicare. No, it doesn't work like that. The way that your son or daughter would get Medicare is at the point that a parent gets their Social Security, either from the parent retiring and collecting their Social Security, the parent becoming disabled, if a parent passes away. And that triggers changing from the SSI to SSDI, which is a process. I don't want to make it sound like, oh, it used to be, well, you just go in and it switches. No, unfortunately, now it's a process. I do a whole other presentation on what that process entails to switch over. But at that point, when there's that switch over from SSI to SSDI for your son or daughter, 24 months after that, they get Medicare automatically. And the parent isn't even applying for Medicare, which is also odd because everything in this entire system is do an application and redo the application. But for Medicare, once the person has had SSDI for 24 months, Medicare starts automatically.
Okay, thanks, Bev. Any other questions? Oh, we have one right here.
Is there any indication whether the unwinding letters are going to be sent out according to date of birth, date of enrollment, alphabetical, or random, or just completely unknown?
Here comes the microphone.
Yeah, my understanding, and Bev and Michael can correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I've heard is it's kind of complex. The state has said that it's a kind of a complex process about how they're going to order these redeterminations, but they're going to factor in a number of things, including, you know, the normal redetermination date. They're going to try, I think, as much as possible to go with that, the normal redetermination date prior to the pandemic starting. But there are some exceptions. I think, as Bev mentioned, with the workability people, they're going to do those at the end, the last few months. There are some other exceptions that, you know, for particular types of special groups, basically, but in general, they're going to try to keep it the way it was before. That's my understanding.
Right. Yeah, I have just one little quick comment. So yes, I agree with Lee from what we've been hearing. However, there's also a feeling that from the county offices, since there are thousands and thousands of people that are going to get these redeterminations over 12 months, that they don't want anything where during 1 month, the county is going to be overloaded with them. And then possibly a month or two later, there won't be as many based on if you look at when the redeterminations happened in the past. So in a desire to balance things out and not again have a gigantic overload 1 month and less another, it's possible that they could be altering a bit what we would think of as, oh, well, if it happened at that time last year, it'll be that time again this year. So we're just not sure.
Hi, my child doesn't live with me. She lives in a group home, but I take care of all of her paperwork. So my inclination is to put down my address for this process. My concern, though, is does that make things problematic in the future? For example, I know that if your child doesn't live with you and you're on regular Social Security, her Social Security number increases a little bit. So I'm just concerned about, you know, having two addresses and putting the wrong information in.
Who would like to take that one?
That's a tough question, I'd say. I don't think there's any real simple, easy answer for that. But I mean, so right now, are you right now with your child's address? It's yeah. So the
But for the other benefits for SNAP for Social Security, I don't want there to be a confusion that she actually lives with me, but I need to take her paperwork.
yeah.
See, taking care of
Yeah, I think that was the key. The key, what I was going to say for me, the practical key is, can the group home, will they at least notify you as soon as they get something? Or
No.
okay, then that's a problem, because if the address of your child, if they can notify you immediately, then obviously keep it the way it is. But that's a big problem. I mean, at a minimum, you want to let the group home staff know that right now it's incredibly important. It's always important, but now it's incredibly important to let me know immediately, and be honest with them. In the past, we've had trouble with getting notified in a timely way, and we can't have that happen here. But yeah, I think there is probably some danger of confusion and maybe delaying approval or reapproval if you change, if you put the different address, and so that is a possible danger. I can't say for sure it would be a problem, but yeah, it's I don't think there's a real easy answer to that.
By the name of your child, John Smith, care of Bill Smith, guardian, and guardian's address.
Yeah, I mean that would definitely help, and that would be better than just saying, yeah.
I think Gabrielle wants to comment
Yeah,
on this.
My suggestion would be put a mail forwarding order in with the post office to have the mail forwarded. Usually they'll do it for a 12-month period to your house. That shouldn't interfere anything with the Medicaid or Social Security or anything like that, because you're just having the mail forwarded during that period of time. And it will elapse, in 12 months. And within that time, you should be getting the Medicaid package. So that might be a way around this problem.
So just as a follow-up to that, is there anything wrong with putting, because I have the same situation as Toddy. Is there anything wrong with putting my address in? It comes to, my son's name, to my address for all medical, all Medicaid, all Medicare things. Is there anything wrong with doing that?
So I've got a practical point to all of this, and I'm curious because even though the terminations have not been happening during the pandemic, redeterminations have been going out since 2021. So there's been at least 2 cycles where folks, unless you're relying on SSI, in which case shouldn't be too worried about this, where you would have gotten a packet either from the county or from the Medicaid office. So if you've got something that works to get those, then that's probably whatever you've got.
So mine did come to my home.
I'm going to say that at least gets
during
into
the
your
pandemic.
hands. At least gets it into your hands in a timely way. If it didn't, well then, right, that's the flag for maybe, mail forwarding is kind of what I was thinking about too. That's an easy way to get the post office to reroute, as long as you count on the post office to do the rerouting timely.
I would not count on that.
Yeah. So
I think we have a question over here.
So for SSI, you can have 2 addresses. You, as the representative payee, I did this for my son because he's in a group home and they're terrible with paperwork. So you can have his home address listed in SSI, and you can have a mailing address and separate contact you and your address for all of his paperwork. So you just call the Medicaid number, or the SSI, SSI, you can do it online, or you can call them and do it online. It was really fast to set up, and that way all the paperwork comes to you regardless, but they separately have proof that he's living in a group home because they have his group home address, and that's the best way from SSA. Medicaid usually uses the same information that's on SSI site, so I think they would use that same mailing information.
Thank you. We have a question in the back. Oh, sorry, I see that
Sorry,
one.
that's okay. Hi. So my son has been getting Medicaid since he was 2 from the community care waiver, and he's 32 now. And I haven't done my social security yet. So I did go down to the office, and of course you can't apply in the office. So I have to do it online, but I did tell them, he is disabled. So Mike, I had 2 questions, but then I got answered about he would get Medicare for 2 years after I received the social security. But when I get the social security, how quickly do they take him off SSDI? And is it going to be seamless that he'll still get the Medicaid? I'm so worried about that he will still have, because he needs his meds and he needs the DDD services. He's very delayed, so we've got lots of issues. So
Do you want me to answer that one? So I talked to a lot of families with the issue about the switch over from SSI to SSDI. I have something that if you email me, I'll be happy to forward it to you. It's called the DAC, Disabled Adult Child Flyer. So it's the Section 1634 regulation that Michael Brower had mentioned. It's actually a flyer that we had input on, but it comes from the New Jersey Department of Human Services. So it has that logo, not something from the Arc of New Jersey, which the counties might not care much about. And so it describes exactly what would be happening at the point that your son has had SSI, and then yours, there's going to be the switchover. And by the way, you're going to have to do paperwork. The switchover is not automatic. For anybody else who's in the process of thinking about that switch, in the past it was automatic. Now it's really filling in an entirely new application. The same stuff that was done when your son or daughter was going to get SSI years ago. However, they are requiring that you do a whole new application and provide documentation to show that the son or daughter had a disability before the age of 22, which does not make any sense. However, it is the requirement. So that's why it takes a little while for the SSDI to actually start, since it's going through an application process all over again. But when the SSDI does start, then there's a letter that comes from Social Security that specifies SSI is ending, because the SSI would stay until the SSDI starts and the Medicaid would continue. At the point that the SSI is ending and that Medicaid is going to end, there's a 4-month window from the point where the Medicaid connected to SSI is ending before Medicaid would actually end. There's a carryover period that the person, your son or daughter, would still have Medicaid. So during that period, you'd want to fill in what's called a request for information Medicaid application. That's explained in the flyer that I can send you. And if your son has DDD, he should be able to get this application from DDD, from the support coordinator. If not, you would let me know and I can make sure that you get it. My email address, if you want me to send the DAC flyer, is broberts@arcnj.org.
Okay, I do see a couple, was there a question in the back? Yeah, go ahead. And then I have some questions here in the chat after you're done, okay? Or in the Q&A.
Hi, I have a question concerning New Jersey workability. So I'm guessing that the $400 net income is for a year. And if that's the case, is there any disadvantage? Like, do you recommend that everybody who's getting DDD funding, whether it's and is working and is making $400 or more net a year, enroll for that program? Is there any disadvantage to doing it? Like, what if the person stops working? I mean, we know that there's a big relationship between IDD and dementia occurring later in life. Maybe they have to stop working. Can you disenroll? Like, what's the advantage or disadvantage of participating?
Thank you. So in terms of manually switching, so if the individual you're talking about already has Medicaid coverage and is making an income that doesn't really prevent them from keeping that Medicaid. There's no great advantage to switching from one to the other. What becomes important is if that person loses their eligibility for some other reason, right? Like they age out of that, if it's age limited, or their income goes too high, or their assets go up, right? Like, you know, people receive inheritances, weird things happen, right? You win the lottery, and something changes in your life to push you out of your current category. That would be when it makes sense to do the switch. And actually, in terms of an actual mechanism to make a decision, like I no longer want to be SSI Medicaid, I want workability Medicaid, there's really not a good mechanism for that. That would be something that would flummox the system. The transitions happen when eligibility terminates under one of those doors and you have to move to another. And if you were in workability, maybe something did change, you move from one to another, and then you stopped working, the same rules apply then too. It still has to be a review of all the doors. Okay, let's take a look now in your current situation. What are you eligible for now at that point, whether it's 5 years, 10 years, 30 years in the future? So, you know, these things all still require transitions from one to the other at any point.
Working? Yes, good. I want to just read a couple of questions that are in the chat. Debbie's asking, is the process the same for interstate foster care? Okay, so we'll get back to you on that one. Okay, so we'll have you contact either Lee or Michael about that question. When applying online, there was a glitch that sent our applications to another unit and were denied. Has this been remedied? Do you know anything about a glitch in the system?
I'm not sure about that particular glitch, but there's often glitches in the system, you know, pre-pandemic and probably, frankly, even more now, you know, with all the volume of cases that they're handling now. So the glitches are inevitable. Unfortunately, the state is trying its hardest and hopefully, you know, to avoid glitches, but there's going to be glitches. There's going to be a lot of mistakes made on these decisions. And so that's why it's just incredibly important to not give up, as I said, to contact Community Health Law Project or DRNJ, Michael's organization, to, you know, to let us give our opinion. And all of this, it is, you know, it is very complicated in some ways, especially when it comes down to, you know, not being eligible in your current category and whether you're eligible for a different category. So, you know, just don't give up. But there will be glitches. There will be mistakes of all kinds. Unfortunately, it's almost inevitable, if not completely inevitable.
Right, and then I think we have one last question here. In phase 2 of the new workability laws, if the phase 2 of the new workability laws are implemented, will you be required to recertify every year during the unwinding process?
So I think the short answer is yes. The last 3 years have been an exception. And even then, recertification or redeterminations have been going forward. They just didn't have any teeth to them. Before the pandemic, you got a redetermination every year. After the pandemic, you'll keep getting a redetermination every year. It's a check to, right, filter out, has somebody's financial situation, you know, living situation changed, and make sure they're still either in the right door, or if they're not eligible, to move them out of the system. That's part of the process. So that'll keep going forward.
Yeah. Hi, Kathy, this is Bev. Very quickly, there's something that I wanted to say about the glitch that was mentioned a minute ago, and not knowing at all what that glitch was. Occasionally, I hear about problems if someone is doing an application online for NJ FamilyCare and they're not going into the ABD side, but the NJ FamilyCare Medicaid expansion side. That's something that isn't based on disability. It's purely low income. And so sometimes people think, well, that should be pretty easy. There's very no income or low income, quick and easy. The problem with that is that if that individual is a dependent on their parents' tax return, then that entire family would have to be low income to qualify. Very often that's not the case. It's a middle income family, but the adult son or daughter has a disability and is low income. So the requirement in a situation like that is that that son or daughter has to not be a dependent on the parent's tax return. It's doable, but sometimes that causes a glitch because the entire family is not low income. I have no idea if that was the case in the email that, or the question that you mentioned, but it's certainly something that I've seen from time to time. One other thing that I wanted to say about problems that are going to be occurring, certainly I'm not an attorney, so anybody who has specific Medicaid fair hearing questions should reach out to CHLP or DRNJ. But because of all of the good work that we've been doing with DMAS, and especially with the Medicaid director and her high-level staff, we may very well be able to expedite things, questions, and resolutions to things and issues without a Medicaid fair hearing, which doesn't mean don't request it. But if something can be resolved very easily, as an example, something where the county office did not review for all other categories or doors for which that person is eligible, and that's why they got a termination, that's the kind of thing that we at the ARC of New Jersey, as well as CHLP and DRNJ, might be able to do advocacy and get a resolution so that the person does not actually need the fair hearing that's been requested.
Thanks, Bev. One more question came in real quick, and then we're going to move on. Do the same rules apply to an individual with Medicaid due to a psychiatric diagnosis?
Yes, the same rules apply completely. There's no, this whole process, I think basically everything we've talked about applies no matter what the medical issue or diagnosis is. So there should be no difference because of a psychiatric versus a physical disability.
All right. Well, once again, thank you, Bev. Thank you, Lee. Thank you, Michael. This has been incredibly valuable, and you guys are just an amazing wealth of information. So we're so grateful that you shared it with us today.